Hello everyone, Coming Clean here. Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack have been taking some heat recently. Complaints have included technical issues like crashes and poor frame rate, but also the general pricing of the pack. What I think about all this is an entirely different video. Today I want to talk about the Nintendo 64 game that was the main reason I decided to get the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack as soon as it was announced. Let's get right into it. It needs to be said that nostalgia can be a huge determining factor regarding your fondness of a game from the past. I've been making Skylanders content for a while now, and it's been thrilling to read all the comments from my viewers about how much those games meant to you when you were kids. When Skylanders Spyro's Adventure was released, I was not a kid. I was 26. But back in 1997, when StarFox 64, or Lylat Wars as it was called here in Europe, was released, I was 12, the sort of prime age for gaming. I actually never owned an N64, but I did borrow the console from friends and played games at their places, adding up to a couple of 100 hours of game time on the console. Back then, you obviously didn't have a huge chunk of money to spend on video games every month. You had your 2 to 4 games that you could afford and you played them, over and over and over again. Ironically, StarFox 64 is actually a game that is meant to be played over and over again. So what type of game is it? I can never be objective about this game since it meant so much to me back in the day, but I can at least tell you a little bit about it.
We're entering Corneria City now.
The StarFox games is a series of games consisting mainly of rail shooters. You fly with your spaceship along a fixed path, avoid obstacles and shoot enemies and bosses along the way. You play as Fox McCloud, leader of the StarFox team, a group of mercenaries piloting R-Wing starfighters. The design of the ship is quite interesting. It's sort of an updated version of the ship from the original StarFox game released in 1993 on the SNES. Because of the limited technology back then, the R-Wing could consist of only a limited amount of polygons, resulting in a sleek, pointed design. I think it's funny to see how iconic this ship has become, when its original design was the result of large compromises from technical limitations. In the game, the planet Corneria in the Lylat star system is under attack by the oppressive Emperor Andros. All characters in the game are different types of animals, and the whole setting is sort of like a fable in space. There is a bit of a backstory here too, including Fox's father and a rival mercenary team called Starwolf. Your team consists of Fox himself and his wingmen, Peppy, Falco and Slippy. You and your team have been hired to help out in battles all across the star system. On most levels you fly in a more or less straight line with set pieces happening all around you as the level progresses. You have your main blaster that can be charged to home in on enemies and a limited supply of smart bombs. There are also a few technical maneuvers you can perform, like barrel rolls and immelmans and pickups to fly through that upgrades your health and firepower among other things. At certain parts of specific missions, a section of the level opens up and you fly around freely. Here the team activates all range mode and opens up the wings of their ships. Most of the time you fly the R-Wing, but on certain levels you control the StarFox team's submarine, Blue Marine, or their tank, Landmaster. The controls are really tight on all vehicles, even by today's standard, and they are translated at least quite well from the N64 to the Switch controller. The R-Wing feels responsive when swooshing back and forth over the screen, and experienced pilots will use the shoulder buttons to bank for even quicker movement. When it all comes together, it's quite thrilling to at the same time keep your aim at the appropriate targets, perform the occasional barrel roll to avoid incoming fire, and still be aware of what lies ahead to avoid any physical obstacles the game puts in your way. In my opinion, the general gameplay has stood the test of time, even for almost 25 years. During certain parts of the levels, your teammates will get chased by enemy ships, and if you're not quick to shoot them down, your teammates will be incapacitated and will not be able to take part during the rest of the mission or the one after. This becomes more of an issue of guilt, since they don't alter the experience in any significant way other than it feels good to have them around. However, Slippy will give you a health gauge on all bosses you encounter, and Peppy will come with useful tips during certain parts of your missions.
Use the boost to get through.
It also affects your total score when the playthrough of the game is complete. Occasionally, it's also necessary to keep your wingman in the air, since it can be a part of unlocking an alternate route through the Lylat system. The first level you play is always Corneria, but the consecutive levels are determined by certain factors on specific levels. If you, for example, manage to save Falco from getting shot down in the beginning of the first level and then fly through all these rock formations, Falco signals you to follow him. He'll lead you through a waterfall and you will end up at a different boss than you would have met at the main route. This boss is actually an updated version of the first boss in the first game. This will also lead you to Sector Y instead of Meteo. Many other levels have similar mechanics, and there are several different routes through the star system on your way to the last level, Venom, and all of them have varying difficulty. Certain routes are harder than others, and they will also lead you to a tougher end boss once you reach Venom, and an alternate ending. Add to that if you get a medal on each level by shooting down enough enemies, you unlock the much harder Expert mode, and you get yourself quite a lengthy, be it a bit of a repetitive experience. But if you get bored, you can always do this in the title screen for a while. Hilarious.
Fox, get this guy off me! Woo! That was...
The level design needs a mention too. Even with the limitations in the hardware, all planets and locations in the Lila system have their distinct style and feel quite unique. Before then, you will have flown through lush green areas, asteroid fields, spinning space stations, and more. Some of my favorites include the planet Katina, which is an all-range mode level that is not very special in itself, but is a clear homage to the first Independence Day movie that came out in cinemas the year before this game was released. I also think that the Macbeth level, where you control the Landmaster and chase a moving train throughout the entire level, stands out a bit, and the face-off with Star Wolf's team on Fortuna is also memorable.
Eddie, long time no see. It can't be happening.
There are also many creative ways that the developer puts obstacles in your way. It can be giant robots throwing pillars at you on Corneria, or the aforementioned train dropping rocks in your path on Macbeth. On Solar you are going to have to dodge waves of lava, and on Meteo you have to avoid asteroids left and right at the same time as you keep track of your targets to keep your score up. Just like some classic games like Mario and Sonic have level designs that still hold up, I think that the same can be said about StarFox 64. Both the sound effects and music are great too. Who can forget the epic tune that plays after you complete a mission? Also, I only briefly mentioned the bosses. They are as varied as they are numerous, and without exception they end each mission in a climactic way. Replaying this game was quite an emotional experience for me. Sure, I played it a lot back in the 90s, but that was more than 2 decades ago. It's almost uncanny how much I remember particular levels. We are talking exact lines that the characters say, spots where certain enemies appear, and sometimes the timing to avoid specific obstacles. If you have a game you haven't played for a long time that meant a lot to you in your childhood, I highly recommend replaying it to see how much your nostalgia impacts your experience. Like the title of this video suggests, this game alone was worth the extra cash I had to pay for the Nintendo Switch Online Expansion Pack. I can of course not say that this will be the case for you, since I'm obviously biased by my childhood experiences. I would however suggest that you give StarFox 64 a try if you get the opportunity. It is quite unique in that it is a rail shooter. Sure, this genre still exists, but most games are retro-style 2D games. Also, it's very unclear if you'll see more StarFox games in the future. Currently, Platinum Games, who made StarFox Zero on the Nintendo Wii U, have said that they are open to re-release the game on the Nintendo Switch, and you can also play as the entire StarFox team in the very underrated space-exploring toys-to-life game STARLINK. That is however all I had to say about StarFox 64 in this video. Consider subscribing for more gaming content. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Coming Clean, and I will see you next time. Take care.